sourced in the U.S. Remember, a lot of that's food, leaving 1/3 imported, and China is just a part of that. We just don't know how much. But of course, when you think about how big Walmart is the world's largest retailer. Even if they import 1/3 and only a part of that is China, those numbers have got to be big numbers. Sarah?
All right, Courtney, thank you. Those trade tensions sending stocks into a tailspin today. The Dow closing down 6.
Reagan joins us with more on that story. Hi, Court.
Hi, Wilfred. So it was less than 3 weeks ago that Amazon said it would spend $800 million in the current quarter to try to get one-day shipping for Prime members. Well, Walmart then tweeted a suggestion that next day was coming for its shoppers. Today, it's here. Free next-day shipping on Walmart.com is available for Phoenix and Las Vegas and Southern California in several days from now on orders of $35 or more. By the end of the year, Walmart says 75% of the country will have this option. So to start, between 150,000 and 220,000 items will be eligible for next-day shipping. Walmart's head of e-commerce, Mark Lowry, told me that is just the start. And for context, that's more than the 100,000 items a typical Walmart store would sell. Now, Lowry says one-day delivery has been part of the plan all along, so there hasn't been and won't be what he calls a step change when it comes to costs in order to execute this faster shipping. Lowry explained it's actually less expensive for Walmart to ship one day rather than 2 day. How is that possible? Well, the eligible items are located in the same fulfillment centers, so that means they ship in one box, and most of the orders are coming from 6 main fulfillment campuses, ultimately located close enough to the end consumers to make one-day ground shipping feasible. The big question, of course, is this going to change consumer behavior? Will it actually shift market share in Walmart's direction? Some think yes, others think same day is really the big game changer. Wilf?
Courtney, thank you very much for that. Amazon actually ending the day higher than Walmart, albeit both.
As we begin this final hour of trade, Bob Pisani on the floor of the NYSE. Bertha Coombs up at the NASDAQ. Mike Santoli with the market dashboard, as always. Phil LeBeau on auto tariffs. Courtney Reagan on weaker retail sales. Rick Santelli with the bond report. And our guest host for the hour, Barry Knapp from Ironside Macroeconomics.
Plus the big stories of the
Details for us. Hi, Courtney.
Hi, Sarah. So April retail sales did fall 0.2% from March. That's a disappointment when analysts were looking for a slight gain. But compared to last April, retail sales gained 3.1%, and March retail sales were revised slightly higher from February, so that marks the largest monthly gain since September of 2017. Building materials, garden stores, that was the weakest, sales down 1.9% in April from March. Department stores, the strongest category, up 0.7% in April from March. And in fact, Macy's kicking off retail earnings, addressing the looming trade tariffs as a potential headwind. CEO Jeff Gennett telling me that while tariffs to this point have had little impact on Macy's, a further hike would, quote, really impact our categories. Sarah?
All right, Courtney, thank you. And joining
Courtney Reagan joins us with a breakdown of today's action there. Courtney.
Hi, John. It's a ripple effect around the world. Major averages in Europe dragged into the red after China announced those retaliatory measures here in the U.S. With the declines today in Europe, Italy and Spain's major averages trading in correction territory. That means they're both down more than 10% from recent highs. And the German DAX sitting less than 0.5% from those correction levels. So that's likely to be next. Now, last week, global equities saw more than $20 billion in outflows. That marked the third biggest weekly outflow so far this year, according to Bank of America. So a key question for investors now, could the latest U.S. tariffs on China be a sign of what's to come for Europe? Market watchers looking for a better sense towards the end of the week. Saturday, that's the deadline for President Trump to decide on potential auto tariffs on the EU, though analysts now expect the administration will extend that cutoff time. Now, the EU has already said that an escalation in U.S.-China trade relations alone could put a dent on economic growth for 2019. Some companies we know absorbing the cost, at least so far. But meantime, the EU says it's finalizing a list of U.S. goods to target in the event that Trump imposes those levies on European autos. So seeing the sell-off continue today, chip stocks also getting hit once again, AMS and Siltronic among the worst performing stocks in the Stocks 600. It's all around the world, this pain. Morgan, back over to you.
Yeah, Courtney, thanks. Key point there, the fact that trade talks
Hi, good morning to you, Melissa. So for the first quarter, Macy's earnings did beat, coming in at 44 cents. That beats estimates of 33 cents on revenues of $5.504 billion. We're going to call that in line with estimates. Now, even though earnings beat by 11 cents, the retailer is just reaffirming its previous full-year sales and earnings guidance. And for the comparable sales this quarter, that's licensed plus owned merchandise, that grew 0.7%. Analysts actually had been looking for a slight decrease, so that was a beat too. And the results mark 6 quarters of comparable sales gains. Now, the department store saw sequential sales trend improvement in physical stores, and online sales grew double digits for the 39th straight quarter. So all that goes into that comp number. And I spoke with Macy's CEO Jeff Gannett, and he said when it comes to the impact of tariffs on Macy's business, that the initial 3 tranches that went into effect in 2018 didn't have a big impact on the business because it didn't infect many of the categories that Macy's sells, except for furniture. And now that's going to have more of an impact as it's been bumped up to 25% as of Friday. But Gannett said, quote, the team has a plan in place to minimize the customer disruption for that bump to 25%. But if tranche 4 goes into effect on the remaining Chinese imports, so that would include apparel and footwear, Gannett said that would really impact our categories. And when you do the math, it's hard to find a path through that wouldn't impact customers. Still, Macy's has been working to shift production and some other solutions with vendor partners. And then regarding the overall state of the U.S. consumer, Gannett says that we don't have the tailwinds that we had this time last year, but the consumer is still healthy, wages are still rising, confidence is still there, and we believe that we can compete in this environment. But of course, there are so many unknowns with this tariff and trade discussion that everyone's just trying to do the best that they can in the retail business to have these discussions preemptively in case sort of the worst case retail scenario comes through.
So it sounded like Gannett was saying that they would have to raise price if the final round of tariffs were there. Did he talk about the consumers, or what he believes is the consumer willingness to pay higher price for apparel and footwear?
No, he didn't, because I think he's not sure exactly how much they're going to have to test that, because they're hoping that if they have to raise prices, that it won't have to be the full amount, that some of these other mitigation strategies, the negotiation with the vendors, moving some production, will at least help cushion that blow. But he said, look, the math is hard to work out any other way, where you don't see prices go up and the customer really taking on some of that pain.
And this is a trickier thing because they can't really pull forward a lot of inventory just because of seasonality issues and,
right,
and fashion issues, right?
Exactly. And that's so interesting because for so long it's been thought that it's good for retailers to be able to bring in inventory and do it in a quicker way, this fast fashion model, because you can respond quicker to changing customer demand. However, that also are the folks that are going to be hurt more if the tariffs happen. So it's really an interesting dichotomy that we're dealing with here, and it's very, very hard, I think, for these retailers to really plan.
All right, Courtney, thank you.
Thanks.
Courtney Reagan with the latest on Macy's.
About that with Gannett, and I said that's great to have 39 straight quarters of double-digit online sales growth. We don't know what that base is, how big it is, and at some point the law of large numbers is going to make that trend sort of end. Right?
Unless it's really small.
Unless it's very, very small.
Because we don't know.
We're going on 10 years. I mean, Macy's, I don't think it's super small based on what we know about Macy's market share online and the categories in which they compete. They actually do quite well.
Mike, I guess the other clear bellwether is April retail sales coming out this morning.
I think the yield on the 10-year really speaks volumes in the past couple of sessions. I mean, it really hasn't moved. It's gone lower today.
Yes.
Because of fears about global economic.
Friedman here and Bannon here. I mean, don't you think? Huh? And somehow you were not that. I mean.
I'm Courtney Reagan. Retailers have sold off since the trade talks ratcheted up on May 6th. The retail ETF down as much as 6%, and they are scrambling to adjust, moving manufacturing out of China, negotiating lower costs, and absorbing some tariffs. But higher prices are inevitable, adding $767 to the average U.S. family of forced purchases this year. Furniture sellers among the hardest hit as tariffs ramp up from 10 to 25%. While Williams-Sonoma is working on mitigation strategies, the CEO says there will still be some price increases. Macy's CEO Jeff Gannett telling me after earnings Wednesday, if apparel and footwear are tariffed, it's hard to find a path that wouldn't impact consumers. Analysts say big retailers selling food and consumable goods like Walmart and Costco are in a better position to negotiate. Seasonal merchandise, so it's harder to sell patio furniture and bathing suits when it's still winter weather outside.
Think about the two great retailers. I think about Walmart and Home Depot.
Thank you.
And Walmart's been working on what they call price investments, right? So they're trying to lower prices where they can, and they want to be the low price leader. They're doing everything they can with mitigation strategies, but that can only go so far. And in certain categories and certain tariffs, and especially if we get that fourth threatened round, that's going to be a big issue.
Also with us to talk Walmart, Charlie O'Shea. He is Walmart
with Asda, which is the unit in the UK, the grocery business. And he said, look, we're not pleased with the ruling we got from CMA. We're going to continue to do what's best for Asda from a competitive position. They continue to do a tremendous job. Judith McKenna, she's Walmart International CEO, mentioned the potential of an IPO, and it is one of the things that we would consider.
Where do you see margins going? Already margins were expected to be under.
The last mile, that critical last mile, they got it all. And I think for this company to demonstrate nimbleness at its size, I was just doing a quick calculation. What do you figure sales for the whole year will be this year?
525-ish.
Okay, so if it comps to 3%, that's $15 billion. Their ability to adapt, and they're going to continue to do that.
Charlie, thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Charlie. Nice to see you.
Good seeing you again.
Thanks.
How about, what's the guy's name?
Brett Biggs.
Brett
God,
Biggs.
I like that.
It's a good name. It's another good name.
Doug McMillian.
Hey, this is a big one, Brian. You know, less than a month after Amazon told investors it's spending $800 million just this quarter to try to get to one-day shipping for Prime members, and Walmart gets there first. Walmart put out a tweet the day after Amazon made its announcement suggesting that one-day shipping was coming. Well, guess what? It's here. Walmart is rolling out free next-day shipping with orders of $35 or more starting today in Phoenix and Las Vegas. Southern California comes in just several days. And then a gradual rollout in the days and months to follow, meaning 75% of the country will be able to get next-day delivery from Walmart.com by the end of 2019. Now, to start, between 150,000 and 220,000 items will be eligible for next-day shipping. Walmart's head of e-commerce, Mark Lowry, told me that's just the start, and that is more than the 100,000 items a typical Walmart store sells, just for context about how much that really is. Now, Lowry says one-day delivery has been part of the plan all along, so there hasn't been and won't be a, quote, step change when it comes to costs to execute the faster shipping. Lowry actually explained it's less expensive for Walmart to ship one day rather than 2 day. How's this possible? Okay, so the eligible items are located in the same fulfillment centers, which means they ship in one box. And most of those orders will come from 6 main fulfillment campuses, each of which are located close enough to the end consumers to make one-day ground shipping feasible. So the big questions now are, will one-day shipping get shoppers to buy more? Will Walmart attract new shoppers as a result? And ultimately, Brian, will this hurt Amazon?
Well, wow, there's so much here. Number one, all I can think about is we've already got these Amazon 10 million square foot facilities off every interstate. I guess we'll have Walmarts right next to them in a way. 75%
of the country by the end of 2019.
One-day shipping?
Yeah, one-day shipping on these 150,000 to 220,000 items to start. So they've really done a lot of work.
You're not going to get some weirdo item. It's got to be something that's commonly
Exactly,
purchased.
and so they've done a lot of work looking at data, looking at what consumers buy and in what areas to figure out what products need to be close as possible to be able to execute that. But they're hoping that over time, and the more data they have, they'll be able to get you more, and maybe you can get those weird items.
The normal stuff, toothpaste, Bounty, paper towels, Spanx for men, the usual stuff that we all purchase.
But even also things like electronics and toys are on the list too. So it's not just, you know, the stuff you might get at the drugstore that you need quickly. It's other items too.
You know, Courtney, stick around. Let's bring in Jan Rogers-Niffen as well. We'll talk about this. Also, of course, we might just have to mention this China trade fight. Who knows? Jan, how big of a deal is this? We always frame it as, it's like the Jets versus the Sharks, a West Side Story reference, right? It's Amazon or Walmart. Can everybody win here?
No, but those two can.
Well, that's what I meant. It's like those two and everyone else suffers.
Everyone else.
You remember it. You covered it. $3 billion. I know a lot of people said they were gobsmacked. What the heck? Stupid deal. Maybe this is the best deal of all time.
Wasn't Mr. Lowry worth it?
Yeah. I mean, his knowledge and his ability to bring that, Jan's favorite word, omni-channel model to Walmart looks like a bargain.
It is true. And I asked him actually yesterday, I said, look, Mark, is is jet part of this? Meaning, like, are you using the jet infrastructure to be able to execute this? And he said, not really. I mean, it's sort of Mark Lorry's knowledge, but it's not jet really that's enabling Walmart to do this. It's the way that Walmart built out their logistics and distribution center, largely with his influence, that has enabled this to be a possibility. It's not something that happens overnight.
You know,
this has been in process for a long time.
Walmart gave Mark 5 more but now it's in Walmart.
I want to switch gears. We've got to move on to, obviously, the topic at hand, China trade. As you're talking about building out these distribution centers in America, companies, retailers, as you've noted, are probably furiously looking at how to change their supply chain situation in China. But that's not going to be in the short term. How long? Note the other day, we showed it last week. I think it's worth showing again. The retailers that are the most exposed on an earnings per share basis, if and when the tariffs go from 10 to 25%, which they officially have, but they haven't kicked in yet. It'll take a couple of weeks.
Mitigation will start taking place really fast now that people think it's a possibility.
And you're saying that's the problem, because that hits all the apparel, all the shoes, the sort of main part of the soft line retail goods.
Correct.
That's
the people I
issue.
care most about.
They've got to have something to put in all those distribution centers for the one-day shipping,
Yes,
or that
they
shipping
do.
may not last. Courtney, great conversation. Jan, thank you very much. All right, still ahead, the tech takedown.